They called me the Corpse Girl. My skin was as cold as a grave, turning blue and veined with black ink, the physical scars of the pain I absorbed from others. I was a healer to my pack, but a monster to my family. I thought the lowest point of my life was when my brother, Nash, poisoned our father to take his title. I was wrong. The lowest point was standing on an auction block, shivering in chains, watching Nash sell me to a rotting, sadistic alpha to pay off his gambling debts. I closed my eyes, waiting for the cold hands of my new master. I didn't feel cold. I felt heat. The ground shook, the candles melted, the doors were blown off their hinges by a wave of air so hot it blistered the paint on the walls, and he walked in. King Zade Volkov, the walking volcano, the Lycan who burns so hot he drives himself mad. My brother thought he was selling a piece of trash. He didn't realize he was waking up a sleeping god. Zade didn't want a slave. He wanted the only thing in the world that wouldn't burn to ash in his hands. He touched me, and for the first time in history, the fire met the ice. Chapter 1. The House of Silence. The mirror in my bedroom was covered with a thick velvet cloth. I hadn't looked at myself in 3 years, not since my skin turned the color of a winter frost and the black veins began to map the agony of others across my body. My name is Veda Thorne, but to the Blood River Pack, I was simply the Corpse Girl. I sat on the edge of my bed, shivering. It wasn't cold in the room, but I was always cold. It was a deep, bone-chilling frost that radiated from my very marrow. Yesterday, I had taken a migraine from the pack beta's wife. Now, that pain lived in my left temple, a throbbing, relentless guest that turned my skin there a bruised, inky violet. Downstairs, a door slammed. The sound echoed through the floorboards like a gunshot. My breath itched. Nash! The house had been silent for 6 months, ever since our father, Eamon Thorne, had died. Eamon had been a good man, a loyal beta who loved poetry and gardening. He used to hold my freezing hands in his warm ones and tell me I wasn't cursed, that I was special. Then he got sick, a sickness that didn't feel natural. When I tried to touch him, to draw the pain out, it burned me like acid. It felt like poison. I looked at my hands now. They were pale, almost translucent. I suspected my brother, Nash, had something to do with Father's death. Nash was ambitious, cruel, and possessed a gambling addiction that was a bottomless pit. Father had threatened to cut him off. 2 days later, Father was dead, and Nash was the head of the house. "Veda!" Nash's voice roared from the hallway. "Get down here!" I flinched. My mother, Sella, and my younger sister, Miri, would already be downstairs, huddled together like frightened deer. They had learned the art of invisibility quickly. They survived Nash's reign by becoming furniture, silent, compliant, and useless. I wrapped a shawl around my shoulders, though it did nothing to warm me, and walked to the door. I was the only one who couldn't be invisible. My existence was an eyesore to Nash. I was the reminder of the father he hated and the burden he couldn't monetize. Or so I thought. I walked down the stairs. The living room smelled of stale cigar smoke and cheap whiskey. Nash was pacing, his hair disheveled, his eyes wild with a manic energy that usually meant he had lost money. Lots of it. Sella and Miri sat on the sofa, clutching each other's hands. Sella looked at me, her eyes filled with a watery, terrified apology. She looked away quickly. You called?" I asked, my voice raspy. Nash stopped pacing. He looked at me with unmasked disgust. He didn't see a sister. He saw a freak. He saw a leech. "I found a solution," Nash said, with a cruel smile twisting his lips. "I found a way to clear the debts, and I found a use for you." "I heal the pack," I said quietly. I'd take their pain. Is that not use enough? You are a drain on resources, Nash shouted, stepping closer. You look like a walking corpse. No alpha will ever mate with you. You bring shame to the Thorne name. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a heavy bag of coins. He tossed it on the table. It landed with a heavy metallic thud. But turns out, Nash sneered, one man's trash is another man's medicine. Chapter 2. The Debt. I stared at the bag of gold. It was more money than our family had seen in a decade. "What did you do, Nash?" I whispered. "I didn't do anything," Nash said, pouring himself a drink. His hands were shaking. "I fixed everything. The casino lords were going to take the house, Veda. They were going to throw Mother and Miri onto the street. Is that what you want?" "Of course not," I said, glancing at my mother. Sella was weeping silently, her tears tracking through her makeup. Miri was staring at her shoes. They knew. They already knew what he had done. "Alpha Krog," Nash said the name casually as if he were discussing the weather. "He runs the northern wastes. He's old, very old, and he is rotting from the inside out. Necrosis, the healers say." My stomach turned over. I knew of Alpha Krog. He was a warlord who collected women like trophies and discarded them when they broke. Rumors said his territory smelled of sulfur and decay. "He needs a filter," Nash continued, taking a swig of whiskey. "Someone to suck the rot out of him so he can live another 10 years. He doesn't want a wife, Veda. He wants a living dialysis machine." He pointed a finger at me. "He wants you." You sold me," I said, the words tasting like ash. "Like a cow." "I sold a nuisance." Nash slammed down his glass, shattering it. "Father was too weak to see it. He coddled you. He let you drain our pantry while you moped around looking like death. I am making a business decision." "He killed Father," I said. It wasn't a question. I looked at my mother. "Mama, you know he did. Father didn't just get sick. Nash poisoned him because Father wouldn't give him the deed to the estate." "Shut up." Nash lunged across the room. He backhanded me. I didn't feel the sting of the slap as much as I felt his pain. When skin touches skin, I absorb. I felt the stinging impact on his knuckles, but beneath that I felt a swirling black vortex of greed and insecurity. Nash hated himself almost as much as he hated me. I stumbled back, clutching my cheek. The black veins on my neck pulsed. "Mother," I pleaded, looking at the woman who had given birth to me. "Please, you can't let him do this. Alpha Krog is a monster. He will kill me." Sella looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She looked at Nash, who was panting with rage, his fists clenched. Then she looked at Miri, my innocent 16-year-old sister. "We have debts, Veda," she said softly, her voice trembling. "If we lose the house, what happens to Miri?" "What happens to me?" I asked, my voice breaking. "You are strong, Veda. You have always been strong. You can endure it. Better you than us." The betrayal hit me harder than Nash's fist. It wasn't the cruelty of the wicked that broke me. It was the silence of the good. "Pack your things," Nash spat. "The carriage leaves in an hour. Don't keep the buyer waiting." Chapter 3. The Sale. The carriage ride was a funeral procession. I sat opposite Nash, my hands bound in iron cuffs. He had insisted on the chains, claiming I might try to run. I wouldn't run. I had nowhere to go. My appearance terrified regular humans and disgusted wolves. I was an outcast in my own skin. We traveled to the neutral grounds, a strip of land between the territories where deals were made and laws were ignored. It was a place of shadows and vice. Nash was giddy. He hummed to himself, occasionally checking the heavy chest of gold that sat on the seat next to him. He had sold his own flesh and blood, and he looked like he had won the lottery. "Stop looking at me like that," Nash snapped, noticing my stare. "You should be thanking me. Crog is rich. You'll live in a palace. Sure, it smells like a swamp, but it's a roof over your head." "You are a small man, Nash," I said softly. "Father knew it. That's why he never trusted you." "Father is dead," Nash shouted, his face twisting. "And I am the Alpha of the Thorne family now. I decide who stays and who goes." The carriage lurched to a halt. "We're here," the driver called out. My heart began to hammer against my ribs, a slow, heavy rhythm. The air outside the carriage felt heavy, charged with something ancient. Nash dragged me out. We were in front of a large, dilapidated stone hall. Guards stood at the entrance, wearing armor painted with a green serpent, Crog's sigil. Inside, the air smelled of stale beer and ozone. A dozen alphas from lesser packs were gathered, drinking and gambling. But in the center of the room sat the throne made of bones, and on it sat Alpha Krog. He was worse than the rumors. He was a massive man, but he was bloated and gray. His skin was flaking off in patches, revealing raw, weeping flesh underneath. He smelled of gangrene and heavy perfume used to mask the rot. When he saw me, he didn't look at my face. He looked at my hands. "Is this the vessel?" Crog rasped. His voice sounded like gravel grinding in a mixer. "It is," Nash said, shoving me forward. I stumbled, the chains rattling. "Veda Thorne, the Sin Eater. She can take any pain, Alpha. She will suck the poison right out of your bones." Crog stood up. He moved with a limp, his joints clearly agonizing. He walked toward me, his yellow eyes gleaming with a predatory hunger. "She looks frail," Crog grunted. He reached out a hand missing 2 nail biters, the skin black with necrosis. He grabbed my chin, forcing me to look at him. His touch was repulsive. It felt slimy and wrong. I gasped as I felt his sickness try to jump into me, a tidal wave of nausea and decay waiting to drown me. "She is stronger than she looks," Nash promised quickly, terrified the deal would fall through. "She took a broken leg from a warrior last week and walked it off in 2 days." Crog released me. He wiped his hand on his tunic. "Fine. The gold is yours, boy. Give me the leash." Chapter 4. The Auction Block. Nash didn't hesitate. He handed the iron chain connected to my cuffs to Alpha Krog. The metal felt heavy in Krog's hand. He yanked it, pulling me off balance. I fell to my knees on the dirty stone floor. Laughter rippled through the room. The other alphas watched with amusement. To them, this wasn't slavery. It was commerce. I was just a faulty appliance being sold to a scrapyard. "You did good, Nash," one of the gamblers called out. "Bought yourself another month at the tables with that one." Nash was beaming. He clutched the chest of gold to his chest, his eyes shining with greed. He didn't look at me. He didn't say goodbye. He had already erased me from his conscience. "Come along, pet," Crog hissed, wrapping the chain around his rotting wrist. "My liver is failing, and you have a long night ahead of you." I looked at the floor. I had tried to summon the courage to fight, but what could I do? If I touched him, to hurt him, I would have to absorb his rot. It would kill me just as surely as his guards would. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry, Father, I thought. I couldn't save the family. The room went quiet. At first, I thought it was out of respect for Crog leaving, but then I realized the silence was different. It was the silence of animals sensing a predator. The air in the room changed. It had been drafty and cold a moment ago. Now the temperature began to rise rapidly. Sweat broke out on Nash's forehead. Crog frowned, looking around. Who opened the furnace? The candles on the tables flickered wildly, then bent, the wax melting instantly into puddles. A glass goblet on a nearby table shattered, unable to withstand the sudden thermal shock. A low, rhythmic thumping sound began. Thud, thud, thud. It was the sound of footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps approaching the heavy iron doors of the hall. The ground vibrated. Dust fell from the rafters. "What is that?" Nash squeaked, clutching his gold. The iron doors groaned. The metal began to turn red, then orange, then white. Heat radiated from the entrance, a wave of scorching air that made the Alpha scramble back, shielding their faces. Boom! The doors didn't open. They exploded. They were blasted off their hinges, flying into the room as molten slag. Smoke billowed in, thick and gray. And through the smoke walked a figure. He was massive, taller than any Alpha in the room. He wasn't wearing armor. He wore simple black trousers that were singed at the hems. His chest was bare, a landscape of hard muscle and ancient scars. But it was his skin that made everyone freeze. Veins of glowing, molten lava ran beneath his skin, pulsating with the rhythm of his heart. His eyes were two pools of burning magma. Smoke rose from his shoulders. He was a walking volcano. King Zade Volkov, the Lycan king who had been asleep for 100 years because his internal fire burned too hot for the world to handle. He had woken up. Chapter 5. The Heat. Chaos erupted. "The king!" someone screamed. "Run!" Alpha scrambled over tables, diving through windows. They knew the legends. When Zade Volkov woke, cities burned. Nash stood frozen, hugging his gold, his face pale with terror. Crog didn't run. He was too old, too arrogant. He yanked on my chain, dragging me behind him as he tried to back away. "Back! Get back! This is neutral ground!" Zade didn't seem to hear him. He walked into the room, his bare feet leaving charred, smoking footprints on the stone floor. The heat coming off him was suffocating. It felt like standing inside an oven. But Zade wasn't looking at the Alphas. He wasn't looking at Nash. He was looking at me. His magma eyes locked onto my pale, shivering form. He stopped 10 feet away. His chest heaved, as if breathing the air was painful for him. He inhaled deeply. "Ice," he growled. His voice was like boulders grinding together deep underground. "I smell ice." Crog realized the king was staring at his property. The old fool let his greed override his survival instinct. "She's mine!" Crog shouted, stepping in front of me. "I paid for her. Go back to your hole, monster!" Zade's head snapped towards Crog. For the first time, he seemed to notice the rotting Alpha holding my chain. The veins of fire on Zade's chest flared brighter. Zade moved. It was a blur of heat and motion. He didn't draw a weapon. He simply backhanded Crog. It wasn't a slap. It was an execution. Crog's head was torn from his shoulders. His body burst into flames instantly upon contact with Zade's skin. The chain dropped from his running hand. Nash screamed, dropping his gold and scrambling into a corner, wetting himself. I knelt on the floor, staring at the monster who had just turned my buyer into ash. I waited for the fire. I waited to burn. Zade stepped over the burning corpse. He stood over me, a towering inferno. The heat was intense, drying the tears on my face instantly. He reached down, his hand was glowing, radiating a heat that should have reduced me to charcoal. I flinched, squeezing my eyes shut. His hand touched my cheek. Hiss. A massive cloud of steam erupted around us, loud and sharp like a geyser. I didn't burn. Instead of agony, I felt relief. The eternal bone-deep chill that had plagued me since birth suddenly vanished. His heat poured into my cold skin, and my coldness poured into his fire. I opened my eyes. Zade was staring at me, his eyes wide. The lava glow in his veins began to dim, cooling to a deep, solid obsidian. The madness in his gaze cleared. He fell to his knees in front of me. He grabbed my face with both hands. More steam hissed, wrapping us in a private fog. "You don't burn," he whispered, his voice filled with awe and desperation. He leaned forward, resting his burning forehead against my icy one. He let out a shuddering breath, like a man who had been holding it for a century. Finally! So cool. So cool. And right there, amidst the burning corpse of the Alpha and the terrified whimpers of my brother, the Fire King claimed the corpse girl. Chapter 6. The Obsidian Path. The world was a blur of smoke and motion. Zade didn't walk out of the auction house. He stormed out, carrying me against his chest as if I weighed nothing. The iron cuffs on my wrist had snapped like dry twigs the moment he touched them, melting slightly at the edges from his heat. I should have been terrified. I was being kidnapped by a myth, a creature of fire and rage who had just decapitated an alpha with his bare hand. But I wasn't afraid. For the first time in my life, I wasn't shivering. "You are cold," Zade rumbled, his voice vibrating through his chest and into mine. "So wonderfully cold." He wasn't complaining. He sounded like a dying man drinking water. "Where are you taking me?" I whispered, looking at the charred landscape passing by. We were moving at supernatural speed, the wind whipping my hair, but Zade's body acted as a shield, a literal heat shield. "Home," he growled. "The stone melts here. I cannot stay in the city." We left the neutral grounds and entered the volcanic foothills of the Dragon's Spine Mountains. The air here was thick with sulfur and ash. The ground was black rock, cracked and glowing with veins of magma. Any normal wolf would have blistered and burned just walking here. But Zade was the king of this wasteland. "My brother?" I said, a sudden pang of panic hitting me. "Nash, he is a rat," he spat, not breaking his stride. "He is cowering in his own filth. If you want him dead, say the word, and I will burn the building down with him inside." I hesitated. I hated Nash. I hated him for selling me, for hitting me, for killing father. But the thought of burning him alive? "No," I whispered. "Not yet." Zade looked down at me. His eyes were still glowing, but the terrifying inferno had calmed to a steady, simmering hearth fire. "Mercy," he mused, "a dangerous trait for a creature like you." "What am I?" I asked. Lifting my hand, the black veins under my pale skin pulsed against the backdrop of his glowing orange chest. "Everyone says I'm cursed, a corpse." Zade stopped. We were standing on a ridge overlooking a valley of black glass. "You're not a corpse, Veda. You are the balance. The world burns, and you are the rain." He shifted me in his arms, holding me tighter. "And you are mine." Chapter 7. The Glass Palace. The obsidian palace was not built, it was poured. It rose from the black rock like a dark, twisted crystal shard. The walls were made of volcanic glass, smooth and reflective, shimmering under the red light of the setting sun. Towers spiraled up toward the smog-choked sky, looking sharp enough to cut the heavens. "Stone crumbles when I lose control," Zade explained as we approached the massive gates. "Wood burns. Glass just bends." The guards at the gate didn't wear armor. They wore heavy leather aprons and carried shields that looked heat-resistant. When they saw Zade, they dropped to their knees, pressing their foreheads to the hot ground. "The king is wakened!" the cry went up, echoing through the courtyard. Zade ignored them. He walked straight into the main hall. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. The floors were black mirror. The chandeliers were made of raw diamonds. And the heat inside was stifling. It was like walking into a sauna. I gasped, feeling lightheaded. My physiology required cold. This heat was oppressive. Zade sensed my distress instantly. "He cooling wards!" he roared at a steward who was trembling by a pillar. "Activate them, now!" The steward scrambled. A moment later, a hum vibrated through the floor. Runes etched into the glass walls flared blue. A wave of magical frost swept through the room, battling the ambient heat of the king. The temperature dropped to a bearable level. I took a deep breath. Zade set me down on a large divan made of black leather. He stepped back, putting a few feet of distance between us. Immediately, I saw the change. Without my touch, the fire in his veins flared up again. His skin grew brighter, his eyes wilder. He clenched his fists, and I heard his skin sizzle. "It hurts you," I realized, "being away from me." Zade grimaced, a muscle in his jaw jumping. "For 100 years, I slept in magma because the air felt like ice against my skin. My blood boils, Veda. Every second of every day, I am burning alive from the inside out." He looked at me with a hunger that made my breath catch. "Your skin, it silences the fire." I looked at my hands. The hands everyone flinched from. The hands my mother refused to hold. My touch kills. I drain life. I absorb pain until it poisons me. "Then poison me," Zade challenged, stepping closer. "I have too much life. I have too much fire. Take it, Veda. Take it all." Chapter 8. The Touch-Starved. That night, I learned what it meant to be needed. I had spent my life being avoided. People walked around me in wide circles. Servants left my meals at the door. My own father, before he died, would only pat my head with a gloved hand. I was touch-starved, a creature dying of loneliness in a frozen body. Zade was the opposite. He was dying of too much sensation. He led me to the royal chambers. There was no bed, just a massive pit filled with furs and silks in the center of the room. The windows were open, letting in the sulphurous breeze. "Sleep," Zade commanded, pointing to the furs. "Where will you sleep?" I asked, clutching my arms. I was still wearing the tattered dress from the auction. "I don't sleep," Zade said, pacing the room like a caged tiger. Smoke trailed from his shoulders. "If I sleep without an anchor, I might dream. If I dream, I might flare. I could burn the palace down." He looked at me, his golden eyes tortured. He stopped, struggling with his pride. "I need to touch you. Just a hand. Please." The king of the Lycans was begging. I sat down on the furs. I patted the space beside me. "Come here," I said softly. Zade hesitated. afraid of his own strength, afraid of his own heat. Then he collapsed. He crawled into the furs and curled his massive, burning frame around my small, freezing one. He didn't just hold my hand. He wrapped himself around me like a blanket. His head rested on my chest, his arm draped over my waist, his leg hooked over mine. Hiss. The steam rose around us, a constant white noise. "Is it too hot?" He panicked, pulling back slightly. "No," I sighed, closing my eyes. For the first time in 20 years, I wasn't cold. His heat seeped into my frozen bones, thawing places I didn't know were frozen. And I felt his pain, the constant, searing agony of his boiling blood flow into me. But it didn't hurt. My body was made for this. I absorbed his fire, and in return, I gave him my chill. The tension left his body. The glowing veins faded to a dull, rhythmic pulse. "Veda," he mumbled against my neck, his voice thick with sleep. "My ice." Within minutes, the walking volcano was asleep, snoring softly, holding on to me as if I was the only solid thing in a world of smoke. And for the first time, I fell asleep not feeling like a monster, but like a cure. Chapter 9. The Sin Eater. I woke up to the sound of birds. Firebirds, specifically, singing from the obsidian ledges. Zade was gone, but the spot beside me was still scorching hot. I sat up, stretching. My body felt different. The black veins that usually webbed my arms were lighter, faded to a soft gray. Absorbing Zade's fire hadn't hurt me. It had fed me. The door opened. Zade walked in, carrying a tray of food. He wore a loose silk shirt, unbuttoned, revealing the hard planes of his chest. He looked rested, younger. "Eat," he said, placing the tray on the furs. "You are too thin. I can feel your ribs." "I've always been thin," I said, reaching for a piece of fruit that looked like a glowing ember. "The pain uses up my energy." "That is because you are starving," Zade said, sitting on the edge of the bed. He watched me eat with an intensity that was unnerving. "Your family. They told you were cursed, that you were a leech." I am," I said, looking down. "I killed my mother's favorite dog when I was 6. I tried to hug it, and I stopped its heart." "You didn't kill it," Zade corrected gently. "You absorbed its sickness. You didn't know how to release it back then, so you held it until it overwhelmed you." He reached out and took my hand. He turned it palm up, tracing the faded black lines. "You are a sin-eater, Veda. It is a bloodline as old as the first king. We were created to be the mate of a Fire Lycan. We burn too hot. You run too cold. We create energy, you absorb it. Without you, I go mad. Without me, you freeze to death." He looked me in the eye. "Your father, Aemon, did he know?" "He told me I was special," I whispered, a lump forming in my throat. "But he never said why. He just said to be careful." "He was protecting you," Zade said darkly. "If the council knew a sin-eater existed, they would have taken you. They would have used you as a weapon to kill their enemies without leaving a mark." "Nash didn't know," I said bitterly. "He just thought I was a freak." "Nash is a fool, and he has made a fatal mistake." "What mistake?" "He thinks he sold a slave," Zade said, lifting my hand to his lips. The steam kissed my skin. "He doesn't realize he sold the queen of the damned, and now that I am awake, I'm going to make sure he pays for every tear you shed." Chapter 10. The Brothers Gamble. Meanwhile, in the Blood River pack house, Nash Thorne sat in his father's chair, his feet up on the desk. He was drinking the expensive wine a Lehman had been saving for a wedding that never happened. The chest of gold from Alpha Krog sat open on the desk. It was enough to pay the casino lords and still live like a king for a year. Nash? His mother, Sela, stood in the doorway. She looked pale, shaking. Is it true? The rumors from the neutral grounds? Nash took a sip of wine, ignoring the tremor in his hand. What rumors, Mother? They say the Lycan King woke up, Sela whispered. They say he killed Alpha Krog. They say he took Veda. Nash slammed the glass down. Rumors! Drunken tales from frightened idiots! But his heart was hammering. He had seen it. He had seen the monster, made of lava, tear Krog's head off. He had run like a coward, leaving his sister to burn. If the king has her, Miri, his younger sister, peeked out from behind Sela. Will he bring her back? Will he hurt us? Nash looked at the gold. Then he looked at his fearful family. His mind, twisted by addiction and narcissism, began to spin a new narrative. He hadn't abandoned Veda. No, he had positioned her. Don't be stupid, Nash scoffed, standing up and buttoning his coat. This was the plan all along. Sela blinked. What? I knew Crog was too weak for her. I knew the king was sleeping beneath the city. I sold her to Crog to get her into the room. I gave her to the king. A slow, greedy smile spread across Nash's face. My sister is the mate of the Lycan King, Nash said, the fear in his eyes replaced by a manic calculation. Do you know what that makes me? The king's brother-in-law. He grabbed a handful of gold coins. Pack your bags, Mother, Miri. We are going to the Obsidian Palace. Nash, no, Sela gasped. If he finds out what you did. He won't, Nash hissed. Veda is weak. She loves you. She loves Mary. We will go there and we will cry and we will say we were forced. She will forgive us. She always forgives. He laughed. A cold, delusional sound. We're not just rich, Mother. We're royalty. Chapter 11. The Conduit. The days in the Obsidian Palace bled into one another. Not in a haze of monotony, but in a blur of discovery. For the first time in my life, I wasn't hiding in a room. Zade took me everywhere. He took me to the forges, where Lycans hammered black steel in temperatures that would boil a human. He took me to the war councils, where he sat me on his lap in front of his generals, daring anyone to speak against the corpse girl. But today, we were in the infirmary. A young scout had been brought in, mauled by a rogue drake. His leg was shattered, the bone protruding, the flesh turning black with infection. Can you help him? Zade asked, standing beside me. His hand rested on the small of my back, a constant furnace grounding me. I looked at the boy. He was screaming in agony. I can take the pain, I whispered. But the infection, if I take that, it might make me sick for weeks. You are looking at it wrong, Zade said. You have spent your whole life being a sponge, Veda, soaking up the filth until you are full. You are not a sponge. He grabbed my hand and placed it on the boy's leg. You are a pipe, Zade instructed, a conduit. Don't hold the sickness. Pull it out of him, pass it through you, and send it into the earth. I frowned. Into the earth? The ground doesn't feel pain, Zade said. Try. I closed my eyes. I reached out with my senses. I found the black, oily sensation of the infection in the boy's blood. Usually, I would pull it into my own heart. Instead, I visualized a river. I pulled the black oil into my arm, felt it travel up my shoulder, down my spine, and out through the soles of my feet into the black stone floor. The boy gasped. His legs stopped twitching. The black lines on his skin receded, flowing into me, then passing through me. I felt a momentary wave of nausea, but then nothing. I opened my eyes. The boy was asleep, his breathing steady. The floor beneath my feet was cracked and discolored, but I was fine. My veins hadn't turned black. I looked at Zade in shock. I didn't keep it. You don't have to keep the pain, little ice. Zade smiled, an expression of fierce pride. You can just move it. That is why you are powerful, Veda. You can move life. You can move death. He kissed my forehead. And if anyone tries to hurt you again, you can move that pain right back into them. Chapter 12. The Fire Garden. That evening, Zade blindfolded me. Trust me, he murmured against my ear, his hot breath sending shivers down my spine. He guided me through the palace, down a winding staircase I hadn't explored yet. The air grew hotter, smelling of sulfur and blooming flowers. Open them, Zade whispered, untying the silk cloth. I gasped. We were in a massive underground cavern, lit by a river of slow-moving magma that cut through the center. But growing on the banks of the lava river was a garden. They weren't green plants. They were crystalline structures, flowers made of obsidian, ruby, and diamond, glowing with internal light. Trees with leaves of spun gold that chimed softly in the heat drafts. The fire garden, Zade said, watching my face. Nothing living can grow down here, so my ancestors built beauty out of stone. He walked over to a tree and plucked a flower made of pure, translucent red glass. It was hot to the touch, glowing like a coal. He handed it to me. For you, he said. I took it. In my hands, the heat of the glass flower met my icy skin. It didn't shatter. It hissed softly, the red glow turning a deep, pulsating purple as it cooled. It's beautiful, I whispered. It is cold now, Zade said, touching the petals I had cooled. Like you. He stepped closer, backing me against the trunk of a golden tree. The heat of the magma river was intense, but Zade was hotter. He stripped off his shirt, revealing the tattoos of smoke and flame that danced across his skin. Veda, he groaned, his control slipping. He lifted me up, wrapping my legs around his waist. I gasped as my inner thighs met the burning heat of his hips. It was intense, bordering on pain, but it was the good kind of pain, the kind that made you feel alive. He kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was a devouring. He tasted of smoke and desire. You are the only thing in this world I can touch without destroying. I am going to worship every inch of you. And there, in the light of the lava river, amidst the glass flowers, the king and I found a rhythm that wasn't fire or ice, but the steam that rose between them. Chapter 13. The Unwanted Guests. The peace lasted 3 days. On the morning of the 4th day, the warning bells of the obsidian fortress rang out. Zade and I were in the great hall, eating breakfast. He froze, his head snapping toward the main doors. A low growl started in his chest, the sound of a volcano preparing to erupt. "What is it?" I asked, sensing his shift in mood. "Intruders," Zade snarled. "At the mean gate. They claim kin." My blood ran cold. Not my magical cold. Real human fear. "Nash," I whispered. General Kael, Zade's beta, entered the hall bowing low. "My king, my queen, there is a delegation at the gate. A man named Nash Thorne. He says he is the queen's brother. He has brought 2 women with him." Zade stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. His eyes flared with magma light. "He dares?" Zade roared. "He sold you like cattle, and now he comes to my door?" He grabbed his sword from the wall. "I will mount his head on a pike before lunch." "Wait." I stood up, running to Zade. I grabbed his burning arm. Steam hissed as I touched him. "Zade, wait. My mother, my sister, they are with him." "They watched him sell you," Zade reminded me, his voice hard. "They are complicit." "They were afraid," I pleaded, just like I was. "Zade, please, if you kill them, I will never know the truth. I need to know why." Zade looked down at me. He saw the desperation in my eyes. He hated it, but he nodded. "Fine," he spat. "We will hear them. But do not stand between me and him, Veda. If he disrespects you, I will burn him to ash, family or not." We walked to the gates. Nash stood there, looking small against the massive black walls of the fortress. He was wearing a new velvet coat, bought with the gold he got for selling me. Sela and Miri stood behind him, shivering in the volcanic air, looking terrified. When the gates opened and Zade stepped out, radiating heat and power, Nash flinched. But then he saw me. He saw the silk dress I wore. He saw the diamond collar Zade had gifted me. He saw the way the king's hand rested possessively on my hip. And the fear in Nash's eyes turned to greed. "Sister!" Nash called out, spreading his arms wide as if he hadn't sold me into slavery a week ago. "Thank the gods, you are alive! We were so worried!" Chapter 14. The Confrontation. I stared at him. The audacity took my breath away. "Worried?" I repeated, my voice flat. "You sold me to a rotting corpse, Nash. You watched him drag me away in chains." Nash laughed, a nervous high-pitched sound. He took a step forward, but Zade growled and Nash froze. "Veda, please," Nash said, sweating from the heat. "You have to understand. It was a strategy. I knew Crog was too weak for you. I knew the king was asleep beneath the city. I had to get you into that room to wake him up." He puffed out his chest, looking at Zade. "I brought you your queen, your majesty. I saved her from a life of mediocrity. I arranged the meeting of the century." Zade looked at Nash with the kind of look a boot gives a cockroach. "You think I am a fool?" Zade rumbled. "I think you are grateful," Nash pivoted, trying to sell the lie. "Look at her. She is a queen, and I am her brother. We are family, and family helps each other." Nash gestured to the chest of gold he had brought. Only half of it remained. "I brought a dowry. We wish to stay. The Blood River Pack is unsafe for royalty." I looked at my mother. Sela was staring at the ground, wringing her hands. "Mother?" I asked softly. "Is this true? Did you plan this?" Sela looked up. Her eyes were filled with tears, but also a strange, desperate hope. She looked at the palace behind me, the safety, the wealth. "Veda," Sela whispered, Nash has a way with plans. Look at where you are. You were safe. You were loved. Does it matter how you got here?" My heart shattered. She was doing it again. She was rewriting history to survive. She was accepting the lie because the truth was too hard to live with. "It matters," I said, my voice shaking. "It matters that you watched me leave in chains and didn't say a word." "We are here now," Miri piped up, her voice small. "Veda, please. It's scary at home. Nash says people are asking questions about father. Can't we stay?" I looked at my little sister. She was innocent in this. I looked at Zade. He was vibrating with the urge to kill Nash. "Let them in," I said quietly. "Veda," Zade warned. "Let them in," I repeated, my eyes hardening. "If I send them away, they win. They get to be victims. I want them to see me. I want Nash to see exactly what he sold." Zade stared at me for a long moment. Then he stepped aside. "Enter," the king commanded. But know this, Nash Thorne. You are not a guest. You are prey that I have decided not to eat yet. Chapter 15. The Vision. Dinner was a tense affair. We ate at a long table made of obsidian. Nash ate greedily, drinking Zade's wine, talking loudly about politics he didn't understand. He was already trying to position himself as an advisor. Sela ate silently. After dinner, I found my mother on the balcony, looking out at the lava fields. "It's warm here," Sela said, not looking at me. "Your father would have hated it. He liked the rain." "Don't talk about him," I said sharply. "You let his murderer sit at the head of his table." Sela flinched. "Nash is your brother, Veda. He has a temper, yes. He makes mistakes, but he has blood." "He poisoned father," I said. It was the first time I'd said it out loud to her. Sela turned pale. "Don't say that. Father was sick. His heart gave out." "His heart was fine." I stepped closer. "I tried to heal him, Mama. I touched him. It burned. It felt like fire in his veins. Sickness feels like mud. Poison feels like fire." "You are mistaken," Sela insisted, backing away. "You are grief-stricken." "Let me show you," I said. I reached out. "No!" Sela cried, trying to pull away, but I was faster. I grabbed her wrist. Usually I took pain, but Zade had taught me I was a conduit. I could move things. I didn't pull pain from her. I pulled a memory. The world dissolved. I was in the kitchen of our old house. I was looking through Sela's eyes. It was late at night, 3 days before Father died. Nash was there. He was mixing a powder into a decanter of wine. A purple powder. "Nash," Sela's voice, my voice, asked. Nash turned. He smiled. It was a cold, dead smile. "Go back to bed, Mother. Father needs his medicine. He's been working too hard. He needs to rest. Permanently." Sela gasped. "Is that Nightshade?" "He won't sign the deed," Nash said calmly. "He is holding us back. Go to bed, Mother. Or do you want a glass too?" Sela stood there. She looked at the wine. She looked at her son. And then she turned around and walked away. She went to her room. She closed the door. She put a pillow over her head to block out the sound of Father drinking his wine downstairs. The vision snapped. I let go of Sela's wrist. She stumbled back against the railing, sobbing. "You knew," I whispered, horror washing over me, colder than any ice I had ever felt. "You didn't just suspect. You saw him do it. And you went to bed." "I was afraid," Sela wailed. "He is my son. What could I do?" "You could have screamed," I shouted, the black veins on my neck pulsing violently. "You could have saved him. You chose your son over your husband. And then you chose your son over me." The door to the balcony opened. Nash stood there, holding a glass of wine. He looked at his weeping mother, then at me. His eyes narrowed. "Upsetting Mother again, Veda? You always were too emotional. Maybe you need another lesson in manners." He took a step toward me, raising his hand to slap me, just like he used to. But I wasn't the girl in the attic anymore. I caught his wrist. My hand was ice cold. His skin sizzled on contact. Nash's eyes widened in shock. He tried to pull away, but my grip was iron. "Touch me again, brother," I whispered, my eyes glowing a terrifying violet. "And I will show you what a corpse really feels like." Chapter 16. The Reversal. Nash screamed. It wasn't a scream of anger this time. It was a scream of pure, unadulterated shock. He tried to yank his hand back, but my fingers were locked around his wrist like a vice made of ice. "Let go!" he shrieked, his eyes bulging. "You're burning me!" "No, Nash," I whispered, watching the frost spread from my fingertips up his arm. "I am freezing you. You always said I was a cold, dead thing. Now you get to feel it." For the first time in my life, I didn't pull pain out. I pushed it in. I didn't have to search far for the ammunition. I thought of the slap he gave me when I dropped a plate. I thought of the chains he put on my wrists. I thought of the moment he shook Alpha Krog's rotting hand and sold me. I shoved those memories down the bond of our touch. Nash gasped, his knees buckling. He fell to the floor of the balcony, dragging me down with him, but I didn't let go. His skin was turning a sickly shade of gray where I touched him. His veins were bulging, turning blue. "Selah, stop!" Selah cried, rushing forward. "You're hurting him!" "He poisoned my father," I snapped, not looking away from Nash's terrified eyes. "He poured nightshade into his wine and watched him choke. Did you tell him to stop then, mother?" Selah froze, her hands hovering uselessly in the air. The truth hung between us, heavy and suffocating. Nash was hyperventilating. I did what had to be done. The old man was weak. He was letting the family rot." "You are the rot," I hissed. The air temperature behind me spiked. The glass doors to the balcony shattered inward, exploding into a shower of glittering shards. King Zade stepped through the wreckage. He was fully aflame. His skin was magma, his eyes were white-hot, and the stones of the balcony cracked beneath his bare feet. He had felt my distress through our bond, and his Lycan fire had reacted instantly. "Get away from her," Zade roared. It wasn't a command. It was a force of nature. He didn't attack Mash. He attacked the air around him. A wave of blistering heat slammed into us. Nash scrambled back, finally breaking my grip. He huddled against the railing, clutching his frozen arm to his chest, looking between the Ice Queen and the Fire King. "She's crazy," Nash babbled, pointing at me with a shaking finger. "She tried to kill me. Zade, look at her. She's a monster. I warned you she was damaged goods." Zade walked over to me. He ignored Nash completely. He reached out a burning hand and cupped my cheek. The steam hissed, grounding me, pulling me back from the edge of my own rage. "Did he touch you?" Zade asked, his voice low and dangerous. "He tried," I said, leaning into his palm. "But I didn't let him." Zade turned to Nash. The fire in his eyes dimmed, replaced with a cold, calculating cruelty that was far more terrifying. "Guards," Zade spoke calmly. Two massive Lycan warriors appeared from the shadows. "Take this trash to the dungeon, and take the women to the guest tower. Lock them in. No one leaves until the queen decides their fate." Chapter 17. The Weight of Truth. The dungeon of the Obsidian Palace was surprisingly clean, but it was hot. The walls were volcanic rock, radiating a constant, oppressive warmth. For a normal human, it was uncomfortable. For Nash, who I had partially frozen, the sudden heat must have been agonizing, thawing his frostbitten nerves too quickly. But I wasn't in the dungeon yet. I was in the royal chambers, sitting in the silk pit, shaking. The adrenaline had crashed. Now there was only grief. "He killed him," I whispered. "My father didn't get sick, Zade. He was murdered. And I tried to heal him. I tried to pull the poison out, but I was too weak. I failed him." Zade sat behind me, pulling me against his chest. He wrapped his arms around me, burying his face in my neck. His heat soaked into my back, a constant reassurance that I was alive, that I was safe. "You didn't fail," Zade murmured. "You were a child fighting a poison meant to kill a beta. The fact that you survived touching him is a miracle." "My mother knew," I sobbed, the tears finally coming. They froze on my cheeks before Zade brushed them away. "She watched. She went to bed, Zade. How could she go to bed?" "Fear breaks people," Zade said softly. "Not everyone has your spine, Veda. Your mother is a creature of prey. When the predator entered her home, she played dead to survive." "That doesn't excuse it," I said bitterly. "No," Zade agreed. "It does not. It explains it, but it does not excuse it." He turned me around so I was straddling his lap. He looked into my eyes, his golden gaze intense. "You are the queen of this court. Tomorrow, you will sit on the throne. You will judge them, not as a daughter and not as a sister, but as a ruler." "I don't know if I can," I admitted. Part of me still wants to please them. Part of me wants to beg Nash to love me. "That is the part of you they trained. Kill that part, Veda. Kill the girl who waited for scraps. Be the woman who takes the meal." He kissed me then, a slow, burning kiss that chased the cold shadows from my mind. We lay together in the furs, the steam rising around us, and for hours he let me pour my grief into him. He took it all, burning it away in his internal fire, until I was empty enough to sleep. Chapter 18. The Court of Fire. The Great Hall was full. News had spread that the Queen's family had arrived and that they were currently in chains. The Lycan court, generals, nobles, and warriors gathered to see what would happen. They wanted to see if the corpse girl had the stomach to rule. Zade sat on his throne of black glass, looking like a god of war. He wore a crown of iron shards. He gestured for me to sit. Not at his feet. Not on a smaller chair. He pulled me onto his lap. A ripple of shock went through the court, but no one spoke. It was a statement. I was not just his mate. I was part of him, an extension of the king. "Bring the accused," Zade commanded. The doors opened. Nash was dragged in. He looked terrible. His fine velvet coat was stained with sweat and dirt. His arm, the one I had grabbed, was bandaged. Behind him, Selah and Miri walked freely, though guarded. They looked terrified. Nash was thrown to the floor at the foot of the dais. He scrambled up, trying to find his composure. He looked at the crowd, then at Zade. "This is a mistake," Nash shouted, his voice cracking. "I demand a trial. I am a citizen of the Blood River Pack. You have no jurisdiction to hold me." "You are in my house," Zade rumbled. "My word is the jurisdiction." "I am the Queen's brother," Nash yelled, pointing at me. "Veda, tell them. Tell them I protected you. Tell them I saved you from father's beatings." The court turned to look at me. I stared at Nash. I remembered him standing over me while I scrubbed the floor. I remembered him kicking my ribs. I remembered the sound of the coins clinking in his pocket when he sold me. "You never protected me, Nash," I said, my voice amplified by the acoustics of the glass hall. "You tolerated me because you couldn't figure out how to get rid of me without looking bad, until Crog offered you gold." "I did it for the family," Nash screamed, his facade cracking. "We were broke because of you, because of father. I had to save us. You gambled away our inheritance, and when father cut you off, you poisoned him." Gasps echoed through the hall. Patricide was the ultimate sin among wolves. "Lies!" Nash shrieked. "She is lying. She is crazy. Mother, tell them. Tell them I didn't do it." He turned to Selah. "Tell them I didn't do it." Selah stepped forward. She looked at Nash, her son, the boy she had protected with her silence for years. Then she looked at me, the daughter she had sacrificed. She looked at the king who was ready to burn the world for me. Selah took a deep breath. "He did it," Selah whispered. "Speak up," Zade commanded. "He did it," Selah screamed, tears streaming down her face. I saw him, but the powder in the wine. He killed Aemon. He killed my husband." Nash stared at her, betrayed. You useless old hag." He snarled, shifting, his hands turned into claws. He lunged, not at Zade, but at Selah. He wanted to silence the witness. Zade didn't move. He didn't have to. I moved. Chapter 19. The Leech. I slid off Zade's lap. I didn't run. I flowed. I moved with the supernatural speed of a Lycan, stepping between Nash and my mother. Nash's clawed hand was raised to strike. I caught it. Again. But this time, I didn't just hold him. "You called me a leech," I whispered, looking into his shocked eyes. The black veins on my skin flared, turning a deep, pulsating purple. "You said I was a drain on the family. You said I sucked the life out of everything." I stepped closer, forcing him to his knees with my grip. "You are right." I opened the floodgates. I reached inside myself into the deep, cold reservoir where I stored every ounce of pain I had ever absorbed. I found the pain of the broken leg I took from the scout. I found the migraine from the beta's wife. I found the necrosis I had sensed in Alpha Krog before he died. I found the burning agony of my father's poisoned stomach, and I poured it all into Nash. "No!" Nash screamed. It wasn't a scream of fear. It was a scream of physical torture. His body arched backward, his bones cracked as phantom fractures ripped through him, his skin turned gray as the ghost of Crog's rot infected his nerves. He clutched his stomach, retching, tasting the phantom poison of the nightshade. I gave him 20 years of agony in 20 seconds. "Feel it," I commanded, my voice overlapping with the growl of my inner wolf. "Feel every bruise you gave me. Feel every day I starved. Feel father dying." Nash convulsed on the floor, foaming at the mouth. He was experiencing 1,000 deaths at once. The court watched in horrified silence. They had thought I was a fragile doll. Now they saw the truth. I wasn't just a healer. I was a weapon. I held him there, suspended in hell, until his eyes rolled back in his head and his heart fluttered like a trapped bird. Then I let go. Nash collapsed, a shivering, broken heap on the obsidian floor. He was alive, but his mind was shattered. He whimpered, curling into a ball, flinching at the air. I stood over him. I felt light. The weight I had carried for years, the pain of others, was gone. I had given it back to the one who deserved it. Zade stood up and walked down the dais. He stood behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. "Justice," he whispered. Chapter 20. The Exile. 2 guards picked Nash up. He hung limp in their arms, drooling, mumbling about spiders and fire. "Kill him," Zade suggested casually. "Throw him into the volcano." I looked at my brother. He was pathetic. Killing him would be a mercy. He didn't deserve mercy. "No," I said. "He wanted glory. He wanted everyone to know the name Nash Thorne." I turned to the court. "Strip him," I commanded. "Take his coat, take his shoes, take the gold he stole. The guards obeyed, leaving Nash in his underclothes, shivering on the cold floor. "Take him to the northern wastes," I ordered, "to Alpha Krog's old territory. Drop him in the middle of the snow." I looked down at him. "You like gambling, Nash? Gamble on survival. If you can walk out of the wastes barefoot, you can live. But you will never step foot in the south again." The guards dragged him away. His wails echoed through the hall until the heavy doors slammed shut, cutting him off forever. I turned to Sela and Miri. They were huddled together, looking at me with awe and terror. They expected to be next. I walked over to them. Miri flinched. "I'm not going to hurt you," I said softly. We didn't help you," Miri whispered, tears leaking from her eyes. "I'm sorry, Veda. I was so scared." "I know," I said. I reached out and touched Miri's cheek. I took a small headache from her, stress and fear, and dissolved it into the floor. Miri sighed, her shoulders dropping. I looked at Sela, my mother, the woman who chose silence. "I cannot forgive you yet," I told her honestly. "You let him kill father, you let him sell me. That is a wound that will take a long time to heal." Sela nodded, bowing her head. "I understand. We will leave." "No," I said. Sela looked up, surprised. "You will stay," I said, "not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to have a family that isn't broken, and because Miri needs a home." I pointed to the guest quarters. "You will live here. You will be safe. You will never be hungry again, but you are not the Luna of this house, Mother. You are a guest. And if I ever see you bow to fear again, if I ever see you turn a blind eye to injustice, you will join Nash in the snow." Sela fell to her knees. She grabbed my hand and kissed it. Thank you, Veda." I pulled my hand away gently. "Go. Rest." As they left, the court erupted in applause. They cheered for the king, but mostly they cheered for the queen who had turned pain into power. Zade swept me up into his arms. The heat of his body radiated through my dress, but I didn't pull away. I melted into it. "You were magnificent," he growled, carrying me toward the exit, toward our chambers. "I feel empty," I whispered, resting my head on his shoulder. "I gave him all the pain. I have nothing left inside." Zade kicked the doors to the royal wing open. "Good," he said, his eyes burning with a promise of a very different kind of intensity. He kissed me, and the steam rose around us, sealing the Fire King and his Ice Queen in a world where the only pain was the sweet ache of too much love. The end.